I had been looking forward to this weekend for months. My boyfriend Leo had been just as eager. We had planned every detail meticulously, from the secluded national park we'd visit in northern Montana to the small backcountry campsite that promised solitude. The park ranger on the phone had assured us late October was the perfect time. We arrived late Friday afternoon. The parking lot, meant for perhaps 20 vehicles, had only one other car. A battered dark blue SUV with Idaho plates, parked at a strange angle that took up 2 spaces. Leo commented on how odd it looked, but I shrugged it off. People drove rough out here. It didn't matter. We hoisted our packs and started down the trail. The path was narrow, climbing steadily into dense forest, twisting around massive boulders and crossing shallow streams. I tried to focus on the beauty, the sharp scent of pine, the rustle of leaves underfoot. Leo seemed to relax with every step, his tense shoulders easing as the city behind us faded. Later we reached our campsite, setting up the tent together. We moved with practiced efficiency, our familiarity a comfort. Within an hour, our tent was secure, sleeping bags rolled out and a small fire crackling in the ring. Leo heated water for our freeze-dried meals while I organized our supplies. As darkness settled, I realized something was off. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Do you hear that?" I asked Leo, my fingers tightening around a mug of tea. "Hear what?" he replied, calm but alert. "This? Nothing, the forest. It's quiet, too quiet." I wanted to believe him. I had spent enough nights in the wild to know forests are never truly silent. Something was out there, and it was aware of us. After dinner, we sat by the fire for another hour, talking quietly, planning tomorrow's hike and photo spots. I tried to let the warmth of the fire calm my nerves, but when we finally crawled into the tent, zipped it shut and laid down, sleep felt like a distant, impossible dream just past 11. As Leo drifted off, I heard it, the first step, soft, deliberate, crunching against pine needles outside the tent. My eyes snapped open. Leo froze beside me. Another step. Then another. Someone was walking around our campsite. I reached for Leo's arm, squeezing tightly. We lay perfectly still, barely breathing, listening as the steps circled the tent, methodical, patient. My mind raced. Who could this be? Another camper? A ranger on a patrol? But why walk in circles? Why no light, no voice? Then the voice came, flat, mechanical. "Hello in the tent. This is Park Ranger Davidson. I need you to come out here, please." My blood ran cold. Leo whispered, What do we do?" I swallowed hard. I'm not going out. Not until we know who's really out there." The footsteps paused. I could feel the person just outside, considering. Then the voice returned, this time sharper. "There's been an emergency. You need to pack your things and come with me immediately. Where is your vehicle?" Real rangers never came alone at night. They had radios, backups, and emergencies didn't involve vague instructions. Leo asked him, "Can you show ID?" "What emergency?" A long silence. Then, "I do not have time for this. You will come now. My truck is waiting. Where is your vehicle?" My hands shook. "We're staying here. If you're a ranger, you can call for backup. Otherwise, leave." Then the steps resumed, this time halting in front of the tent. I could see a shadow through the mesh. Tall, broad shoulders, heavy jacket, baseball cap. No uniform, no radio, nothing that indicated authority. Just a man standing in the darkness, the voice now low and threatening. "Open it, now, or I will open it for you." I reached for the small folding knife in my pack, trembling, but determined. Leo positioned himself between me and the door. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain it echoed outside. The shadow didn't attack. It merely lingered, watching, waiting. Time passed. I don't know if we slept. We heard footsteps circling, scraping against the tent. Finally, gray dawn light filtered through the pines. Footsteps receded down the trail. I waited another 30 minutes, afraid to move. When I finally unzipped the tent, our campsite looked untouched. Packs exactly where we left them, fire ring undisturbed. Relief was fleeting. The footprints around our tent were unmistakable. Dozens of loops, deep impressions from size 11 or 12 boots with a distinctive waffle pattern. My stomach churned. The hike back took half the time it took to come in. The parking lot was the same, Leo's truck untouched, and the dark blue SUV still there, sinister in the daylight. I finally got a signal and called the park ranger station. The ranger on the phone listened, alarmed. Soon backup arrived. They inspected the SUV. In the back, zip ties, duct tape, rope, a hunting knife, and detailed notes about the park's remote campsites. The man, Carl Mitchell, was a convicted felon with a violent history. He had vanished, leaving no trace despite search dogs and helicopters. Weeks later, I learned of 2 hikers who had disappeared in that same park the previous year. Their tent and gear left untouched. We never camped there again. I still don't know why. I thought camping alone at Mirror Lake would be a good idea. Maybe it was desperation. I told myself I needed peace, distance, time to breathe again. When I stopped at the small wooden office to get my overnight permit, the man behind the counter barely looked up from his clipboard. His badge said, Ranger Holt. When I told him I'd be camping alone, he looked up sharply, his expression flat, unreadable. Mirror Lake's quiet this time of year, he said. Too quiet, some say. I smiled, but then he added, just trust your instincts out there. If something feels wrong, it probably is. He wasn't warning me about bears or weather or even people. It sounded deeper than that. I reached the lake by mid-afternoon. The place was beautiful, almost unnaturally so. The water was glass, perfectly still, reflecting the orange blaze of October leaves like a mirror that had swallowed the sky. There wasn't another soul in sight. I set up my small tent at the edge of the trees, just far enough from the water to avoid morning dew, and spent the next few hours in silence. For a while, I felt calm. The kind of calm that's heavy and rare, the kind that comes only after a long stretch of chaos. I made a small fire, cooked some soup, and tried to write in my journal, though my mind kept drifting to my ex. The way he used to trace circles on my wrist when we camped together, the way he always said, "You're safe with me." Funny how those words echo differently when you're alone. When the sun slipped behind the mountains, I zipped myself into my tent. I lay there for hours listening to nothing, reading the same sentence from my book over and over. Then, somewhere close and maybe 20 feet away, a twig snapped. I froze. Another crack, this one slower. Then silence again. It could have been a deer, I told myself, or wind, but the air outside was perfectly still. Not even the fabric of my tent stirred. I tried to ignore it, forcing myself to focus on the book. That's when I heard it, the sound that still crawls under my skin when I think about that night. Something dragged slowly along the side of my tent. A soft, deliberate scraping that moved from one side of the tent to the other, then stopped. I held my breath, every muscle in my body locked. Then it came again, this time higher up, right near my head. Skrrr, skrrr. Whatever it wasn't brushing past. It was feeling the tent. Testing it, I whispered, "Hello?" But no answer. Just that slow, steady sound circling. I wanted to grab my flashlight, to unzip the tent, to do something. But fear roots you in place in ways you can't understand until it happens. I could hear the soft crunch of footsteps now moving around me. Not an animal's scurry. Deliberate, human-paced steps. At one point, the scratching came from directly above, sliding across the fabric like nails tracing a circle around me. My breath hitched. Tears filled my eyes. I didn't dare move. I just listened, counting the seconds between each scrape. It went on for nearly 20 minutes. Then nothing. The silence that followed was worse. I don't remember falling asleep, only that I woke up to pale morning light bleeding through the tent walls. My body ached as if I'd been clenching every muscle all night. When I finally unzipped the flap, the ground around my tent looked disturbed. And then I saw across the clearing, half hidden by the fog, stood a figure, tall, motionless, just beyond the tree line. Too far to make out features, but close enough to feel. He wasn't walking. He was watching. I don't know how long I stood there staring, unable to move, and the figure was gone. I packed faster. My hands were shaking so badly that I tore a zipper clean off my tent bag. I didn't care. I ran, barely breathing, until the lake disappeared behind me and the gravel trail reappeared. I didn't stop driving until I was 2 hours away. When I got home, I dumped my backpack on the floor and collapsed onto the couch. For a long time, I just sat there, too drained to cry, too afraid to sleep. It wasn't until later that I noticed something inside my bag. A thin strip of pine bark, curled at the edges, coated in fine red dust. There were letters carved. Stay. I don't know how it got there. I don't want to know. Oh God, I've never gone camping again. My family had this tradition. Every fall we'd go camping in the mountains. It was our thing. My parents would pack up the old tent, load the car with sleeping bags, cocoa, and too many marshmallows, and we'd head out into the crisp September air. Some families did beach vacations. We did fog, pine needles, and ghost stories by the fire. I loved it. Until the year it all went wrong. It was late September, colder than usual that year. I was 19, home from college for a long weekend, and my little sister Charlotte was 14. She still tried to act annoyed at family trips, but I could tell she was excited. She'd brought her sketchbook. Our dog Bear was in the back seat, tail thumping against the cooler, and the drive up the mountain was filled with that quiet sort of happiness families share. We reached the campsite just after noon, a new spot my parents had found in a national forest we'd never visited before. It was beautiful but strange. As we unpacked, I noticed Charlotte kept glancing into the woods. "You okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "It feels like they're staring at us," she said, half joking, half serious. I laughed it off, but I understood what she meant. By the time the sun began to dip, a heavy fog started creeping through the forest. It came low and slow, curling between the trees like something alive. My dad said it was normal at higher elevations, but even he looked uneasy. By dusk, the mist had thickened into a pale wall. We could barely see 20 feet beyond the campfire. That's when Bear started acting strange. Normally, he loved camping, chasing squirrels, rolling in the dirt, begging for scraps. But that night, he paced the edge of our campsite, hackles raised, low growls rumbling in his throat. Every few seconds, he'd stop, stare into the fog, and snarl. My dad kept telling him to relax, but Bear wouldn't listen. Then all at once he froze. His ears shot up, body stiff as a statue. The growl deepened into a sound I'd never heard from him before, raw, primal fear. And then we saw them, 3 figures, walking slowly out of the fog. I thought they were other campers. But as they came closer, something about them was wrong. They moved in perfect sync, step for step, their silhouettes tall and heavy. When they finally came close enough for the firelight to touch them, my breath caught in my throat. They were men, wearing old-fashioned hunting gear. Thick red and black plaid jackets, worn work pants, heavy boots, and one carried a rifle. But everything about them felt out of time, like they'd stepped straight out of an old black and white photograph. Their faces were pale and empty. They stopped just at the edge of the firelight, about 15 feet away, and they stared. They stared directly at me. It was like being pinned beneath the spotlight, frozen, every nerve screaming. Their faces didn't move. No blinking, unblinking eyes locked onto mine. My dad stood up, forcing his voice to stay calm. "Good evening," he called out. "Can we help you folks?" Nothing. They didn't move, didn't answer, didn't even breathe. Bear went wild, barking, snapping, dragging his leash until my mom had to grab him. Charlotte whimpered beside her, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. My dad tried again, louder. "You're trespassing on our site. You need to move along." Still nothing. Only silence, thick as the fog around us. Then one of them tilted his head, a sharp, bird-like motion, and I swear I heard the faint creak of bone as he did it. Then, without warning, the three men took a synchronized step backward and another. They didn't turn around. They just kept stepping back into the mist, eyes never leaving mine. The fog swallowed them whole, and then they were gone. We sat there, too stunned to speak. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clench them in my lap to stop it. My dad grabbed a flashlight and walked toward where they'd been standing. My mom begged him not to, but he had to see for himself. Then they said, "There's nothing, no footprints at all." When I walked over, he was right. The ground was soft, but where the men had stood, there wasn't a single footprint, not even disturbed earth. It was as if they'd never been there at all. We didn't sleep that night. My parents kept a fire going in shifts watching the tree line. I lay awake in the tent with Bear pressed against me, trembling, his eyes fixed on the flap. When morning finally came, we didn't talk, just packed in silence and left. My dad didn't even bother with breakfast. He just said, "We're done here," and that was that. None of us spoke about it for weeks. It was like an unspoken rule. Pretend it didn't happen. A month later, while researching for a history paper, I came across a digitized newspaper archive from that same region. I wasn't even looking for anything related, just searching for local history. But one headline froze me where I sat. 3 hunters found dead in National Forest, October 1978. The article said they'd gone missing during deer season and were found weeks later, deep in the woods. It included a photo. I dropped my coffee when I saw it. They were the same men, same clothes, same rifle, the same blank expressions I'd seen in the firelight. I showed my parents. My mom went pale and had to sit down. My dad read the article 3 times without saying a word. We tried to rationalize it, but none of us believed that. We'd seen the impossible. We never camped there again.